Welcome to How to Run Profitable Retreats podcast, the podcast that guides you not to only host retreats that thrive financially, but also transform people's lives. I'm your host, Lainey Cavazos, and each week I bring you the best strategies and personal insights to help you create retreat experiences that transform lives, both your clients and your own. In our journey together, we'll dive into the secrets behind successful retreats, from crafting a unique atmosphere to mastering the logistics that ensure profitability. Whether you're tuning in for inspiring interviews with leading retreat experts or seeking actionable advice in our solo episodes, this podcast is your go-to resource for turning your retreat visions into reality. Don't miss out on any of our episodes and subscribe now. For more tools and a free guide on creating your own six-figure retreat business, visit theretreatplanner.com. Now let's get started and make your retreat dreams come true. So hello there. Welcome back to another episode on the podcast about retreat planning. And I'm so excited to have here today Dr. Cailin O Hara, the ACM and Diploma OMLAC. She will tell us all about what this means. And she's a nationally board certified doctor of Chinese medicine, licensed acupuncturist, intuitive healer, and business coach. And we're going to be talking today about abundance. That is one of my favorite topics. So I am so excited to have you here today and for us to have this conversation and to share some knowledge with everyone who's listening to us. So welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. The energy already feels really good, you know?
Yes.
We're going to work some magic here. I'm ready for it.
Oh, yes. You know, because abundance at the end of the day, it's all about creating magic in your life, right? Creating your wildest dreams into reality and just allowing basically things to come into your field, right? It's all about energy and feeling it like in the way, like coming from the heart, right?
So well said. Yes, it is about allowing. It is about coming from the heart. And it's something that we all want, whatever the abundance symbolizes for us. And that is available, but at the same time can seem so elusive or hard to find or like a struggle. And like, you know, we can teeter between like feeling abundant or feeling completely in lack or feeling frustrated and feeling in flow. So yeah, I'm ready to talk about it and see where it goes.
Oh, yes. This is one of my most passionate topics to talk about because for me, it really is about your energy and really allowing yourself what you really desire. And I think something that you mentioned that is so important is like, however abundance looks like for you, right? And I think some people can be abundant and they can be in their farmhouse with 2 goats, and this is abundant for them. And this is exactly what abundance looks like for them. For other people, it can be having their bank account overflowing with money. And for other people, abundance is having a family and a beautiful husband and wife and kids and having the life that they desire, right? Abundance is all about allowing all the things to come into our field that make us happy.
So well said. And as you talk about it, it's clear that you also can feel it. You know, somebody can say something, but do they really feel it? Do they really get it? Do they really energetically resonate with it? And when it's so good listening to you because you're not only saying words, you're also conveying what that really is energetically. So it's like somebody can say something cool, but when they say it and they're actually sharing that feeling with you, that's different. And I can feel that. And it inspires me to say, and to kind of emphasize what you said, that it is about allowing yourself to have what you want and be who you are. And then, so for me, it always connects with honoring who and what you are. And this abundant path allows us to accept, embody, embrace who and what we really are without limitation, without judgment, without any sort of construct. And that to me is the work around abundance, right? So far has been allowing myself and people I work with, like, let's allow ourselves to have these things, to honor these things, to hear our truth, to listen to our heart, because then it does come. But if you're not allowing it, you're not listening to it, or you believe that abundance is money, but for you, it's not. It's like you said, it's really this lifestyle over here. That's all it is. And it wants to find you. It wants to be yours. And when you finally have the things that do feel abundant to you, they feel like such a perfect fit for you. You know, it just makes your life what it was meant to be. So anyway, yes.
Yes,
In
I love
resonance.
exactly what you're saying. Like I have a friend, and the other day she was telling me, my meaning of abundance, like the meaning for, like the definition of abundance for me is like she's a sound healer, right? And she's absolutely wonderful. And for her is to see the transformation in other people. She's like, if I get to touch someone else's heart, this is what abundance is for me.
Wow.
She's like, it's not about the money, she's like, I have enough. Sometimes she's like, I work too much. I have to wonder why I worked so much. But because for her, it's just all about showing up and creating this beautiful space for other people to open up their hearts.
Yeah.
And realize that maybe there's something that still needs to be shifted.
Yeah. And so agreed, that kind of emphasizes that it's a deeper connection. It's a calling. You've said the word heart several times, and I love that this conversation on abundance is really going to the heart, the energy of heart, like what that really symbolizes, because that can also keep us away from ego. So if we remember, it's not always easy to find sometimes, but to remember to stay in that heart-centered place, then the ego desires, the things that pull us out of who and what we really are, or when we're really wanting something from a place of lack or emptiness or struggle, which is not really heart-centered, I think it can help check us, because when we're on this path of manifesting our desires and things, sometimes you may be confused about what you actually want, or you may get caught up in things that aren't quite it. Or like in this case, this person, she loves what she does. She feels that calling, it feels abundant to her. And then one day, maybe something new feels abundant to her and she evolves into the next desire. I don't think it's static either. Sometimes it's this, and then in however long it might be something else.
Well, you have just like gave me the chills. Because
we're killing it then.
Oh, yes. No, because this is exactly like, for me, I love retreat planning and I love teaching about retreat planning. But lately, I've been feeling that there is a higher calling for me in certain other topics, right? And it's actually, it's very funny. The other day came to me and it was just like, it's all about claiming who you are and how can this become a heart-centered approach to your business, right?
Yeah.
And how can you actually allow yourself to guide with the heart and then allow the mind to follow, right? And then you put all your tools and business techniques in place. So there's actually a piece that is executing and it's actually
making it there's some structure there,
right?
Yeah,
there's some structure there.
Yeah.
But really, and because every time I have a conversation with people, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is your passion? Why are you doing this? Why did you get here? How did you get here? Right?
Yeah.
And everyone says, I followed my heart.
That's where it is. That's where it's from. And hearts, I was just talking to a coaching client this morning about, we just wrapped up with the first phase we were in, and that's what it came to for her too. And I said, for people like you and me, those are the only types of people I know, me, you, all, like when we're coming from spirit, we're coming from heart, we're coming from intuition, and we want to run a business, for instance, or we want to create things in our lives. It is intuitively guided, and it's not three-dimensional. It's not logical and linear, and it's such an important distinction to make and one to honor, because we can get caught up in the structures of the planning or lose that sense of heart, even though maybe not fully lose it, but feel a disconnect from it and not necessarily trust it. But that's where all this comes from. This is such a heart-centered conversation too. I love it.
Yes, like I have to say, at some point I was just like, I had so many systems and things I still had to manage and put in place and all these kind of things. And I was just like, I'm just not feeling it. I was like, I need to go back inside, feel it, and then I can do all these technical things that you have to do for it to go, right? I was just like a little bit tired of social media. So I was like, I'm taking a break because I want to show up as who I want to be. I don't just want to show up because people are expecting me to show up.
Yeah. I like how you described it as, this is so key, right? It's so key. You just described the very thing that I think, well, we're talking about business now, but showing up is all about, is I have to maintain that internal everything, and that connection. And when it feels off, when it's not feeling right, that's sometimes when people can move more into, I'm going to try to control the external things or create more systems or do more things. Same thing with wanting to experience greater abundance. I'm going to like put my hands on it, try to control it, try to change it, try to make it something. But in reality, it's all coming from something internal anyway. And so the thing to do is stop, to slow down, to pull inward. Like I just took a sabbatical of like 3 weeks where I was just staring at walls and writing in my journal, and because I needed to, and like we have to give ourselves that space. And interestingly, I just did my books this morning and I made more money this month than I made the month before, even though I wasn't really working, because that's also money and that's abundance. And that was the decision that I had made. But we must create it internally, which is also completely true, I think, for living in abundance. It's definitely not about trying to control external things and make them abundant or what we want them to be. It comes much more effortlessly from that internal work.
Yeah, I really think this is like so amazing. I was in this program that I really love with Kathy Heller. I think I mentioned her to you last time, and she's all about abundance, right? And I remember I was in one of her classes and I was just feeling so great. It was just like so inspiring, She doesn't really talk much about business. She talks about energy and, like how you're supposed to feel. And, she guides you through meditations. By the time I stepped out of that call, I had some people like purchase my online program, like the self-paced. I just had money in my bank account.
Yes, because that's how it works. Isn't that great?
Yes.
Haven't you noticed that with money? At least that's how I experience it too, wherever it can come through for you, it will. And whatever slight opening, and money or abundance or whatever slight opening is available, it's going to come through. It's going to find you, and you don't have to work at it. And you shifting like you did and creating those changes by doing the meditations and stuff. I mean, that really is it. I mean, obviously we do things like you had a place for people to buy stuff, right? So perfect. There is something there. It's not just like we're just sitting on the floor meditating all day too, right? So it's like finding that balance, but I completely agree. Yeah. And then it just shape shifts for you. If we talk more specifically on money, I don't know if you've noticed this too, the number doesn't seem to matter. It sort of has a life of its own. So like it makes sense. Like, why do I take off and I have more money than I had the month before? Well, I decided I wasn't going to use my savings. The money would be there. I don't know how. And then everything just kind of organizes differently through my intention without me trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? So I've just noticed that over the years with business and money, it's like, it is just responding to us. And if we speak even more to that, my hack around all of that is, okay, well, if it's responding to me, then I can look at it and decide what I would rather it be. And as long as I feel like I can believe that, get behind that, and embrace that, it'll eventually happen. So end scene, like I don't have to figure any of it out. You know what I mean?
I love it. And I've experienced the same thing. And I think like, I'm sure people in the audience, I'm like, this has happened to me too. And so many times it happens even when in a place of unawareness, like it's not like you're planning on it or anything like that. But yeah, for me, sometimes I was also like, you know what? I don't want to spend my savings in X and Y and Z. So and
has to happen some other way.
I was just like, okay, that's it. And then the next day I had people calling me, Lainey, I know you told me you didn't want to do this project, but I want you and no one else, right? And I'm like, okay. And then another call came in, and then my bank account suddenly filled up, and I'm like, yes. Okay.
Yes. Isn't it fun? That's one of the coolest things about money. Like I geek out on, I love talking about money. I think money is such a fun thing to work with because it doesn't have an agenda and it does really respond to us, but it also shows us so much of our own stuff. It's like such a cool mirror, And so when you look at it as numbers and just how they tend to like organize themselves, it's almost like seeing into the matrix or something, it's like these just keep organizing in these ways. And I'm not trying to make it happen, but I can tell where my boundaries are, like a coach that I follow describes it as like you have like a high point that you'll tend to go and a low point and you won't really go beyond that. And it's up to you to kind of establish a higher and higher standard for yourself and get comfortable with it. And then it just gets easier. And that's kind of when I look at my money is how it is like, oh, just happened. How cool. It's such a fun, like, feels like a boomerang. You throw it out and it shows you itself again. But also it can be a very scary mirror for people if you are struggling with it. If you don't have enough or whatever, then that opens up a whole other can of worms, I guess. But I've been there too. And so I can speak to both sides of it.
Yeah, I think for anyone to become abundant in general, maybe not everyone, right? Unless maybe you're my brother, who my mom says he was born with a cake underneath his arm, and they say this is like, money comes easily, and for him it's just like, unless you're someone like him, you probably went through a place. And of course he even has some like scarcity mindset here and there and everything, right? But just money keeps flowing in, it doesn't matter. You're always gone through the process of like feeling yourself that you're scared, that maybe you're not worthy, or how am I gonna pay rent next month, or how I'm gonna pay my mortgage. And I have and I know this also elevates a lot when you have kids and other people are responsible from your income, right? So it makes it a lot harder. But when I talk to my clients about like retreat planning and they're scared about charging and making a profit out of it, honestly, I tell them, are you going to show up to your retreat worried about paying rent, or you rather show up from an overflowing cup, being able to share your gifts with other people, right? To really create this transformation. Like, it's your choice. You choose how you show up. I was just on a call a couple of minutes ago with a friend, and she was telling me the prices for her program. And I said, like, honestly, like, it's a 6-month train, like a proper training. I was like, I told her, like, go back into the numbers and just like split it and see how much you're going to be getting per session. Is this really what you're worth? Like, are people really going to show up and do the homework if they're paying like this amount? Honestly, like, I don't even want to say the number because it was very, very low. I was like, no, is this really like a place of your highest interest? Forget about everyone else. She's like, but I ran interviews and people wanted to pay very little. I was even like, like I said, like, then they're not your clients.
They're not the people. But see, those people are just mirroring her beliefs anyway. This is the cool thing about it, is like, it's never about blaming yourself. Like I do blame myself because we all have the weird voice in our head that's not very nice to us. So obviously I'm not perfect, but I'm also aware that I don't need to blame myself for the things that show up in my life. So say if I were in her position and people were, like wanting a very low price and whatever, I would ask myself, what in me is in agreement with this? What in me thinks that this is okay? And not in a way to blame myself, but just to say, okay, well, then I decide for something different because I'm not available for this kind of shit to show up in my life. I'm ready for X, Y, and Z. And then I pivot, which is a huge part of coaching, right? We're always like working on like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? How can we help you do that in a way that's true for you? And so that's such a perfect example of like, it's mirroring what she feels comfortable with. And then the things that you feel comfortable with financially or in anything in your life, love, success, like whatever you actually feel comfortable with is what you have the capacity to have, to charge, to receive, to be. And so if something's showing up and it's like under your desired capacity or abundance, then you just get to tell yourself, well, it's time to level up. Because I'd be damned if somebody was showing up in my reality saying like, oh, this is too expensive for me or whatever. It's like, great, I love you, I honor you, but that just means you're not a fit for this thing. That's all.
Yeah, and we need to understand that these people are going to be taking space from someone else who might be willing, or is willing actually, to pay the worth of your work, right? I remember when I put my coaching session prices, like the, like the private ones, a lot of people were looking at me and they're like, are you really charging that? And I was like, hell yes.
Good for you.
Like,
that's awesome.
I've been here for so many years. I've done so much work. I've done so many trainings. I invested in myself truly. And I know I can create a transformation for the people who are working with me.
Yeah.
So I have no issues. But then being very honest, sometimes when I launch my group programs, I'm like, am I supposed to be charging this? Is this really da-da-da? And honestly, I have to go through the experience. I sell a couple on that price level, and then I'm like, you already knew the answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, okay, I had to go and test it. And then,
Totally.
for me to like really basically live the experience, sometimes we just need to live the experience for us to be like,
that's not it.
This is not what I want.
This does not feel good. See, that's the cool thing. You're totally speaking to the cool thing about numbers, which is money, it's just the equivalent of what feels good for you and what doesn't. And we can translate it as money or anything, but it's really just in my body, does this feel good? So if you're like, I like to give random examples that usually all point to the same thing. So if you're going out on a date with somebody and like it feels almost okay, but not quite right, you might test it out again, be like, in my body, this is just a no. Well, the same thing is true for money or anything that you want. And when we're working with, creating rates and programs and things, we have to kind of like sift through, is this my own personal resistance, or is this actually like, I don't feel like this is an appropriate rate or whatever. But there are people at every price point, and it's so true, right? Like people pay Tony Robbins, what, $1 million for a minute to hang out with him. So it is what it is. There's always somebody there. But the person, if your rate is aligned and you are like, yes, this is it, this is the thing, then that means that whoever is perfect for what you do, that's also the perfect price point for them. It's so divinely aligned that there's never anything to doubt in it. And when you start to feel like, you know what, I need to raise my rates or I need to do something differently, that's simply because now it's time for something new.
Yay.
Yep.
I absolutely love this, right? And in business, like I always tell people, you get to choose your fishing hole. You either go and fish sardines or you go and fish mahi-mahi.
Yes, you do.
You get to choose.
And it's about I love this because it's very relevant for me. It's about how you see yourself and about, how you see your worth, your value, your work. I mean, some people are really out there and very inflated about what they're doing. Like they're not really qualified. They're not really where they say they are, but they're out there saying it. And then there are some of us who are extremely overqualified and really undervaluing and underspeaking into ourselves, and then everything in between. But when you hit the sweet spot of knowing who you are, knowing what you do, knowing what you're here to bring, which comes from experience, then you can embody it, and then it'll all just kind of align. And it's like climbing a ladder or some stairs. And so like for me, for example, right now, like to give an example of this, because it's never static, you're always evolving. I can, how you can like feel the next level that you're approaching. You just talked about it, and that so much of you is there, but not all of you is there, and you're working to be there, and you're in a transition, and you're almost like arrived. It's you getting ready for it. And then when you're there, more abundance, more success, whatever, it's because you can really own it.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes this might feel like a plateau, right? When you're in between the stairs, you're like, nothing is happening. And I don't know, like, do I go back? Do I go forward? What does forward mean? All the questions arise because the brain and the monkey mind
Brain's
wants
crazy.
to like take over and be like, this is the rational
it's wrong
thing to do.
Yeah, it's like, it's wherever you are is like not right, even though in the cycle of change there's periods of pause before rebirth and transformation. But sitting in it is not good, especially as intuitive people, right? Like when we feel things and we feel guided, like, oh, it's time to go, it's time to pause, it's time to make this, like we feel all of that. When you feel the pause, the plateau, the in between, the indecision, it's very much like, what do I do? And that's when we might like try to do all the things or get depressed about it, or like you said, what direction do I go? But that's usually that sweet spot before something new comes.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, because for me, it all feels very much of course, everything is divinely aligned, and you have to, I always tell people like, like I love my ex-boyfriends, like we might not be friends, but I'm so grateful to them because of all the experiences that I lived with them. I am who I am today. Like they were great teachers, right? And I could spend my life hating them and being like, oh my gosh, you were a terrible boyfriend. Or I could actually see my reality, right? that I probably, if I didn't have the situations that I had, I would not be who I am today. I would have not left Mexico, go and live in Middle East, meet so many different nationalities, work for a corporate office, learn so much. For sure, this would have not happened.
Yeah, it's all part of it.
So I'm just like, oh, yes, this is amazing. And the same with the business. I'm like, I love doing this, but it feels like there is something more coming, right? That there is more to it. And I'm like, I might not be able to pin it out right now. So I'm like, okay, what am I doing? I'm just putting a couple of hours of work in the morning, kind of like, like saying this is the time where you go and you do something, so you keep moving, you keep the energy flowing, but then you take the whole afternoon off to do something creative. You want to read, you want to paint, just go and do something that allows you to feel in your body, in your heart. And then from there, know that everything will be created, right? So you have,
and because it's not yet here. You're totally speaking to that. It's such an intuitive path of, it's not yet here. I don't yet know it. How do I handle myself when I don't yet know? And I know it's coming, but I don't know what it is. And I know once I know, I'll move into it. So how do I support myself in this in between? And same for me in my business right now. I feel the huge transition, but I don't have it all yet. I don't really know. And then for so many of my clients I'm working with, I feel like we're in an interesting time period of eruption, like new things. And people have been leading up to it for a very long time, years. This one feels big, but it's also, we don't have all the pieces. We have an idea and we're moving toward it, but we just don't know it completely. Yeah, but inside of that, you can still be abundant inside of that.
Yes, it's not like, oh, everything, the world stop and, nothing is coming into place. And then now I just need to like, go and hide on a cave. And, like we're past beyond cave age, right? Like it's
you just
over.
see what happens.
And I do believe
it's scary, but
it is, right? Yeah. But I do truly believe that if you are abundant in many aspects of your life, including money, right? You will have more tools in the future to help other people and to do good and to really live that life that you desire. And also knowing that if it goes away one day, it's okay. It will come back.
Yeah. I just talked to a client about that today. It's like, yeah, you might have it now, you might not have it tomorrow. That's okay. It's like, you can be a little bit detached around it, especially I think when at least for me, when I've experienced it and you get to the other side of certain levels of success or whatever, it's beautiful to go through. It's wonderful to have. And at the same time, you understand it's pretty transient and then you're just on to the next thing. And then, so it takes some of the fear out of it and you can ride those waves. Like I can ride waves in business now differently than I did 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago, I was terrified, like, how does this work? How do I do this? Because there's ebbs and flows. And now you can kind of more like daringly embrace them because you know that it's part of a cycle.
I love it. And I have to say, I've been working a lot on myself. And, as I said, I always invest in myself. And one day I realized that, I was not afraid of failure. I was afraid of success. And it was so interesting to realize that, because I was like, you're not showing up because you're afraid of like being successful, being seen, and actually getting like, your worth out there and people being like, oh my gosh, she really knows what she's talking about, right? Like she is here for a reason. And, she keeps showing up and showing up and showing up. And at the same time, I realized that so many people are afraid also of success because they feel like the failure or like falling, it's so much higher, right? It's not just one step. Might be a downhill and they don't know if they'll be able to recover from that. But we can all be covered from that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It does not feel safe to the part of our brain that's trying to protect us. And it's so funny you say that because I just recorded a podcast today and I talked about that. I said something like, exactly to what you just said, where I had been a bit reluctant to share certain levels of success or abundance or whatever, just because I felt like I wasn't quite there yet. I wasn't arrived enough yet to talk about it. And if I really did start talking about it and then I effed up in some way, like I failed or it didn't work for me anymore, then I would look like a failure. And as you realize those things are in you, you're like, well, wait a second. Like, even if all this falls apart, I'm just going to use it as a way to learn more about life. And it's not really that scary. And I won't be ashamed. And as long as I'm authentic and really sharing from truth, then I'm going to be a positive influence and I'm going to help people. And so it's like these protective mechanisms that block us from our success and our abundance and all those things. The reason we don't have them is either because of our readiness, we're just not ready yet, and that's okay. Or we're blocking ourselves from it in some way because we do not feel good enough and we don't see ourselves in the way that we need to in order to have it. Like there's a quote, I don't remember what it's from, but it says your self identity becomes your destiny. Like the way that you see yourself is how your life unfolds. I think that's one of the most important things. And like you said, like maybe I'm afraid to be visible, or I'm afraid I'm going to screw this up, or I'm not seeing myself in the way that I need to in order to get the things I want or to be who I want to be, which all of this then just keeps pointing back to it's internal. Like it's internal work that we're doing.
I really love everything that we've been speaking about because it's so important. And for everyone who's listening, I know everyone is in the business of transformation, right?
Yeah.
Either if you're already running retreats or not, or you have coaching and consulting, or, however you want to call it, a practitioner, shaman, yoga teacher, it doesn't really matter. It's just, that's just the name of a container, right? Of an identity that you've created. The reality is that because we're in the business of transformation, we can only transform and help other people transform, because we don't really transform people, right? We help them transform. So we can only do that if we allow ourselves to transform as well, because then we can teach them, because we're basically 5 steps ahead of where that other person was, right? So we can help them and show them the ropes on how to get here, right? And this is the beauty about this business and this space of spiritual awareness and destiny and just creating your future, because you get to show other people how to get there. And then you're going to have teachers who are going to show you how to get to the next level. And it's just collaboration, right?
It really is. We're all one, and we're all speaking a similar language, and we're all on a similar path. I completely agree. That's why it's also important for those of us that do have something to share to make sure that we share it, because somebody might need it, might need to hear it, and to not hold ourselves back from it. And then for us to, when it feels aligned, to seek out support to help us kind of on that journey, because then we can kind of speed ourselves up a little bit.
Yes, like that's why I love doing this, right? And helping people level up when it comes to retreat planning or their business from a really heart-centered approach. Because I know that, I said it the other day, right? I said it to my brother. I said, like, if I knew career coaches existed when I was back in my, corporate ladder hamster wheel situation, and I actually knew about it, and someone came and told me, hey, Lainey, if you do this, this is really going to skyrocket your growth and it's going to be great for you. I would have done it. And I can tell you, like, of course, I would not be here probably standing with you. So the place was perfect, but I would have loved to have someone helping me get to the next level, right?
Absolutely. I completely agree. And it's such a unique fit when it does happen. Like, when you're like, oh my goodness, this is a perfect fit. This is totally going to help me. And a lot of times for me, it actually comes from spirituality or books or, something like that. And every now and then it'll be like somebody I talk to or a friend, you're like, oh, thank goodness, I have some clarity now, know?
Yeah. Sometimes it's just the small moments, right? The small things that just like, they bring this awareness and you're like, okay, I can do this. Right? Yeah, it's in the little things sometimes that things like really shift and change for us. Yes. So, Cailin, so tell me something. If there is a tip or something that you would like to share about abundance, what would it be?
A tip about abundance.
Something.
Well, yeah, I'm feeling into it. It's exciting. And also feeling into it intuitively too. I think that we all hear so much about it, and I think at least us on this journey, I'm sure a lot of us have read the books, done the thing, da da da, blah, blah, blah. But for me personally, and I usually always end with the same type of message. Now that I'm saying it, I realize I'm doing it again. It's really about the relationship that you have with it and with yourself. But that's because that's how I see things, you know? So everything that's external to me, I see it as a relationship I have on some level with myself. So when it comes to abundance, when it comes to things that I want, to me, it's a very like spiritual relationship. And that makes it very personal and something that I practice trusting, and something that I listen to my own inner voice and inner guidance around, and what's divine to me. Because then it feels really sacred, and it feels like something where I'm getting clues and I'm in this like unfolding mystery. Whereas if I were just pursuing it for the sake of pursuing it, that feeling of magic, that feeling of connection, and those things that I deeply need would not be there. But that's just personal for me. Like, as an example, I just purchased a luxury vehicle that I have had on my mind for like 4 years. And I finally arrived at a position where it's like, cool, I'm doing this. You know, it was such a beautiful point of arrival. And I just recorded a podcast about it today because I spoke to it as a spiritual experience. Like, it might just be a car or this thing that you want, but when you build a deeper relationship with it and it has meaning, and it winds up in your life and it unfolds in this really synchronistic way, to me, that's what it's all about. So I think for me, it's always going to be the relationship I have with these concepts of abundance, the relationship I have with money, seeing everything as a relationship and how I want to improve that relationship, how I want to show up to that relationship. And then furthermore, it's an extension to me of spirituality. So that way my world feels really magical versus mundane or scarce. That would be whatever, that is super abstract, but that's also my brain. So that's my abundance tip.
That's perfect. I love it. I really feel that at the end of the day, it's all about how we feel about abundance, right?
Always.
And then if we're not feeling in the best way possible about it, because we're afraid of being abundant in whatever version it is, then I invite you to go figure out how to fix it or change it, because you are worthy of a life of abundance. And you can definitely reach out to Cailin. That is amazing, and she will definitely be able to help you out. So how can people find you?
Yeah, so if you see my name, you can just literally look that up anywhere. I do spend time on Instagram though, so just look at Dr. Cailin O Hara, Dr. Cailin O Hara. Basically, you just put my name in Google and all the things will show up. And I do spend time on Instagram for now, and maybe some other social media platforms. I have like 3 different podcasts. So once you go down the rabbit hole, I have so much free stuff out there. Speaking of abundance, like 7 years or something worth of stuff out on the internet to explore.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing this. And I hope
thank you for
all
having
of you,
me.
yeah, of course. And I hope all of you listening in, you take advantage of all the things that, she is sharing abundantly. And, I hope you found this conversation inspiring for all of you, and you get to allow all the abundance that you desire in your life. So thank you so much for joining today. I'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
Wow, what a great episode. If you like our podcast, How to Run Profitable Retreats, leave us a review and share it with a friend.